Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And we're continuing our survey of Handel's orchestral music with music for the royal fireworks. Well, there are some recordings of the fireworks music that are absolutely iconic, and this is one of them. It has to be Charles Mackerras with the Wind Ensemble, because it had no name at the time he made the recording for Pi label, I believe, back in let's see, what is the date here? 1959. This was the first ever recording of the music for the royal fireworks in Handel's original orchestration. And when you know what the original orchestration is, you'll realize why the ensemble had no name at the time. Because the original orchestration was, get ready, 24 oboes, 12 bassoons, 9 horns, 9 trumpets, snare drum, several, a few sets of timpani, including, hopefully, double timpani, the big suckers. Handel used to requisition them from the Tower of London Armory in order to get timpani. The usual other stuff that you might have is like a continuo thing, but although for this you didn't really need it. Handel also at one point included a contrabassoon, which he scratched out, and of course he didn't want strings because he wanted strings. The king hated strings. He later added strings, but this was the original wind band version. And quite frankly, until modern times and Berlioz's Grand Symphony Funèbre and things like that, it was probably the largest wind band that anybody tried to get together for a single occasion, or one of them. I mean, it was huge in the 1740s. And oh my goodness, it sounds wonderful. And it was fascinating to see, what would happen when you got all these things together. Since then, of course, there have been multiple recordings, often on period instruments, with the full wind band scoring. But this was the first. And it's still one of the best. Mackerras himself re-recorded the fireworks music and actually speeded up his tempi and took more cognizance of, period performance practice, PPP. But he didn't have to. I mean, there's no reason why it needed to be quicker, and there's no reason to believe that when they played it back in the day, it actually was quicker. Probably it was slower, especially since it was outdoors. You don't know how well rehearsed they were, and in those days rehearsal was kind of a sometime thing. But it is amazing that they were able to get this thing together at all. They did the recording. It was like 2 a.m. or midnight or something. The whole thing's described in here. The Church of Saint Something and Cripplegate or Cripplesmere or Handicapped Alley, I don't know, whatever it was. And they were all drunk, which added an enormous amount of character and vitality and vibrancy to the final result. But they weren't so drunk that they couldn't count and they couldn't stay together. The fascinating thing about using 24 oboes and all those bassoons is that they don't necessarily get louder. They get bigger. I mean, there's a difference. Of course they're louder because there are more of them, but the generalized timbre is very similar to what happens in a string section. A single violin is a very focused and piercing tone. When you put an ensemble together and the timbre is the average of what everybody's doing, including different types of vibrato and all of this stuff, then you get a generalized timbre, which tends to be somewhat warm and fuzzy. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. It has a mellow sonority. It has a mellowing effect on the more piercing or nasal qualities of the solo instrument, whether a violin or an oboe. And that's what happens here. It is amazing to hear the wonderful balances between the brass instruments and the wind instruments. And of course, the percussion comes rip-roaring in. It's delicious. It's absolutely wonderful. So this particular incarnation is on Testament. It's still available, readily available. And it comes with one of the concerti a due cori, which are wonderful pieces, that Handel wrote for performances in his oratorios and other things like that. And a couple concerto things that Mackerras arranged. That Handel used in his concerto performances, where he cobbled together movements from various places, including the overture to the fireworks music, which he reused a bazillion times. And we've got the Water Music Suite, arranged by Hamilton Hardy, and the overture to Berenice, Haydn wrote a Scena di Berenice. Berenice was a very popular topic for opera seria back in the day. So the sound was very good. It's still very good. You just throw them in a church with a big acoustic and hang up a couple mics and let it happen. And happen it did. It is an absolutely thrilling account of the fireworks music. And it belongs in every collection because it was historically important and historically worth listening to now. Things that are historical are sometimes just historical. They're not otherwise worthy of attention. But this was always worthy of attention because it's Mackerras, and it was just an amazing vindication of Handel's original conception, which was pretty stunning when you think about it. You'll call it the original occasion while they were playing the fireworks music, or the fireworks were going off, the platform caught fire and people burned to death, and it was just a jolly event with the music going on in the background. If you listen carefully, you can hear the screaming. Dun, 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 ah, dun, 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 ah. Yeah, that's real réjouissance, isn't it? So just get the record and don't worry about the pain and suffering. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.